For those of you that are watching online, you should have been here. You'd have heard it all. Okay. We speak from that text and we say, that's the Great Commission. First of all, those words are not anywhere in the text, okay? That's something we put there, okay? The nature of it is certainly within the reach of understanding God's entire plan. And his plan from the beginning has always been what? To reach the world. Not just Jews, but the world. What did he say to Abraham? And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. It was always his intent. You and I today are Gentiles that have received the text. Now, that began with Matthew 28. Go into all the world. Right? Preach the gospel. You hear that? You hear that preacher just getting after it. Who's he talking to? Who's he talking to? Huh? You see that in there? Look at the context of that passage. Who is he talking to? Jesus is resurrected. He's resurrected. He's about to ascend. When you compare it to Acts chapter 1, we're probably very close to the moment he's about to ascend. Who's he talking to? The apostles, period. And why is that? Because they are the ones that are going to take the gospel to the world to the point to where Paul says that in his lifetime it reached it. Romans 10. Why? Because they were built for it. They spent 3.5 years with him. They saw things. They heard things. They went through things. The nature of that, going into all the world, is not on you. Unless you're built for it. Now, one thing that the brother said that's really touches to this text is the fact that you live your life in such a way, what did Jesus say? That others may see your good works and glorify your Father. They see how you live. You have a job? You have kids to raise? Not everybody's built to go out into the world, right? And the other element of interpretation is that grammar means things, right? Grammar has a place to play. The word make disciple is an imperative. And in literature, what's an imperative? Command. English classes a long time ago. I get it. It's a command. Non-negotiable. Do this in remembrance of me. Imperative. He said, go and make a disciple. Make disciples. That's an imperative. Now here's the problem for us. If it goes to us, and that is an imperative, if you have never immersed somebody, you're in violation of the command. Well, that's not good. How many of us in our lifetime are going to go through and not immerse anybody? And yet the command is what? Can you make a disciple without immersing them? Can you be a disciple of Christ without the forgiveness of sins? Can you receive forgiveness of sins without being immersed? That'll be a no, and a no, and a no. He gave that to what did he say in Acts chapter 1? Is it at this time you are restoring the kingdom to Israel? He said, it's not for you to know the times or epochs, but instead you what? You will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria, and even to the remotest parts of the earth. It was their job to get the ball rolling. And then Paul, as he would do in the books of Titus and Timothy, explained to the evangelists, you are to pick up and continue the work. But you know what? Mothers, you know what you need to be? Good mothers. Best mothers. Does the Bible talk about what mothers should do? Yeah. How about fathers and husbands? And does it talk about what you should do? Does it talk about bosses and employees? And so that's what you should do. If you're not built for it. My wife and I are built for it. That's why we went. My kids are built for it. Even if they weren't, I said they were. We took them. I have 4 children. We lived in Africa for 2.5 years. I've been going back frequently. And I have worked with a number of evangelists and starting congregations. I've preached seminars at the Bible college to over 170 preachers at a time. I help with a school of 160 in a village. I eat rice a lot. And believe it or not, I love sardines. And so for 2.5 years, lunch was 2 cans of sardines and 2 warm Cokes. And I loved it. My wife's not fond of it. She made me eat it outside. But we were built for it. We're not in competition. You don't get extra points for being an evangelist. You don't get extra points for being an elder. What happens is, if you don't do the job you're built for, you got trouble. So having said that, when you read Matthew 28, and he alluded to it, he said, you go out there and you live your life, and you invited your people to the tent meeting, didn't you? And then you turned that over to what? To guys like me. You get them here and let me do my job. Do you know how to deal with Presbyterianism, Mormonism, Calvin, Zwingli? No, I do. Why? It's my job. Do I know how we got the Bible into English? Yep, I sure do. Do I know a little bit about Greek and grammar? Yeah, I know a little bit. Why? Because of my job. Now, some of you, right, are probably mechanics, right? My knuckles were not made for that. Okay? Your knuckles were made for it. You can bang them and go, hallelujah. I'm sure that's what you said. We're all built. We're all built for something because that's what makes us the body. You get them here. Now that doesn't mean that you can't give an account. That doesn't mean that you can't teach them. But remember, we're talking about a much bigger picture. Get them here and let Jeremy do his job. Let the elders do their job. Let people who are skilled at this do their job. Because guess what? You operate that way in everything else you do. Why would it be any different? Take the guilt off your shoulders. Because if you look at the text, you have to do what? You got to go. Where? Into all the world. And you got to make a disciple, then you got to immerse the disciple, then you got to teach the disciple, and you got to what? Continue to do so. As he said, and even to the end of this age. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have a responsibility. I'm saying understand what that responsibility is. If in your life you cannot persuade someone to come to this assembly with you so they can get exposed to somebody who can work through all of that stuff, then that's what you need to beat yourself up over. Your life should be so different. When you sit around and talk about the movies you go to. My wife and I, we always like to, when we travel, we like to go to the movies if we can. And we found one. I was too tired to go, but that's another story altogether. It was about a guy who shepherds sheep. And evidently he gets killed. And so the sheep decide to become the detectives. I'll watch it, for crying out loud. I can't go wrong with that. It's probably kind of corny and dumb and so forth, but I can watch that. How about the music you listen to? All of that influences us, and other people know. Josh is up there on the thing. I don't know if he was singing "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot." I don't know exactly what the song was, but people pay attention to us. And the way that you can help is simply by doing what it is that God has given you the ability to do. If you're a mother, be a good mother. If you're a wife, be a good wife. If you're a husband, brother, you get it, don't you? Be it good. Do it good. Standing around the water cooler and somebody decides to say some kind of an off-color joke. Come on, dude. What good is that? Why do you want to say that about her? Or gossip or anything else. When you start standing up and drawing those little lines, you're going to get one of two results. One, they don't want to talk to you ever again, or ask questions. You say, I don't have all the answers, but I know some people that can probably answer them. Why don't you come with me? That's kind of a premise for this morning. And as I said this morning when I was teaching class, first of all, I need to say a great big thanks to you and thanks to Mr. Jeremy. I do, because you know what, preachers? They can be very protective of their pulpit. Can't they? Sure they can. You've got investment here, you've got investment with people, but I go to places they wouldn't need, if I asked to come and speak about the work we're doing, some places they won't have me because they're too protective. We don't know you. They come from a period in time where you had to have a letter of recommendation sent from a previous congregation before they... And I don't have a problem with any of that. I really don't. But the fact that this was allowed says something about Josh, that, he said, I don't know what he said. We've got some guy that you need to really help him because he's like not very there. Or there was some value, and Jeremy didn't, and the men as a whole didn't. So I'm appreciative, and I'm not, I really can't underscore my appreciation for that. But we are a part of a universal body, aren't we? At least that's what the book says. So I thank you for allowing me to have the hearing today. And as I said in class when I first started, I'm here for your money. I said it. Right? There's probably all kinds of fancy words that I could use and strategically placed phrases, but I'll just, I'm here for your money. Okay? Now, the question is whether or not you believe that it's worth giving. And that's a part of what I'm going to do now. So, Donna, why do we go? There's Matthew 28. That's why we go. I'm an evangelist. I follow the instructions given by Paul to Timothy and Titus, and so I go. And not everybody's equipped to do that, as I have indicated to you. Corinthian letter. Paul says, I need some help. There's been a great big door opened up for me. And I want to step through it, so I'm asking you for some help. And nearly 30 years ago, that door was opened up for me and my family, and we went. And we ain't never stopped since. And people from various places and walks of life have helped us do that. But I can tell you the American system is drying up. Money's coming short. I spoke it, as I mentioned, at Bible colleges in Africa. And the first thing they wanted me to do was to say, do you know anybody that could give us some money? Because many congregations who were long-standing in giving contributions have started writing them saying we can't give it anymore because our numbers have dwindled so far we can barely pay the bills of the building. So Paul says, I need some help. Here's the thing that we concentrate. And sometimes, we know that the Bible talks about good works, right? Right. But one of the things I noticed that this is one of the few places where it's specified what that good work is. That we should what? If anyone thinks he is religious among you, not bridling his tongue, but deceiving his heart, the religion of the one is vain. Religion. Today it's a negative word. Young people especially. I don't need religion, but I am spiritual. What in the world does that mean? I see that more and more. You know, podcast. Spiritual, but not religious. What? You're changing the word. You're changing that. They're inseparable. Religion. Definition. Religion is defined by the practices that you do. That's what separates groups. Religion is your practice. The Lord's Supper on the first day of every week is our religion. It's a practice. We take offering, right? We sing songs, right? We hear preaching. That's a practice. We immerse. We don't sprinkle. Because sprinkling is a different religious practice, which makes that a different religious group. Galatians chapter 1, a different gospel. We behave differently. That's what religion is. So Paul here, as he's describing, and then later on, as James would say, here is the definition of pure religion and undefiled, and that is to look after orphans, widows in their time of tribulation, and then what? Keep yourself unspotted from the world. I don't think you need a rocket scientist to explain that. I mean, it's pretty simple. God's not trying to confuse us. The nature of what he said, by thy word thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. So if we say we believe the book, then what? We believe what it says, and that's what it says. And I, for many, many years, focused on preaching, and I preached all over the country. This is Africa. Ghana, West Africa is where I've done most of my work. I have been in South Africa, Mozambique, and Liberia, but I've done most of the work. These are the faces of men that I have interacted with that are preachers throughout the second largest city, which is Kumasi. And I've interacted with them, some of them, for the full duration of my time there, and trained some of them. I've gotten invitations to speak in small congregations in the village as well as large congregations in the cities. The nature, as it was, solemnly charge you to preach the word. That's what I do. So I'm not sitting on the couch. When I came to Minot, people were a little, they didn't know what to think. I didn't either. It's cold up there. I came up there in February. But I said, well, the Lord said everywhere, so here I come. The phrase up there is, "My not, why not?" Okay. So I got there and I explained to them on one Sunday. I said, this is what I believe my responsibility is to do. And I quoted the text out of Timothy. And they had a room off to the side. And I'm not making a joke. I'm just telling you about me, okay? Telling you about me. And off to the side was a room, and it said, minister. You know what the first thing was? I took that stupid sign off the door. I don't know what office hours are. I don't know what those are. I didn't find them in Timothy and Titus. He just said, be ready to preach in season and out of season. Middle of the night, got to go see somebody, meet somebody at dinner. Florida, a couple of years ago, a brother came to be a brother. He was living in Iowa. We was in Orlando, Florida, having 5 brethren from the body and mine out. We went there for a little R&R, and we was sitting in the Holiday Inn, and I was on a Sunday night in a hot tub. I love hot tubs. Guy was sitting in the hot tub. It was Sunday night. Been to assembly. It was karaoke night. Some fellow was singing, I Did It My Way. Old Frank Sinatra, I Did It My Way. And he got down, he wasn't too bad, but then he said he was going to do it again. I said, oh, jeez. And there was one other fellow in the pool there with a young fellow there, and I said, do you know any gospel songs? Maybe we should go up there and do it. I don't know this guy from anybody. And I just said, because I could tell by his face he didn't want the guy to sing it again either. And so I said, hey, do you know any gospel song? He says, yes, I do. And I said, so you like the Bible too, do you? Yeah. We talked for an hour. He said, I'll be back. I said, I'm here every night, all this week, right here in this spot in the hot tub. And he came, and we talked. And he came, and we talked. And on a Wednesday night, in the hot tub, I immersed him right there. You don't know who's looking. You just got to be ready to do it when his time comes. Preaching the Word, teaching the Word, doing those things that God has asked me to do is what I try to do. Do I get tired? Shoot, yeah. Do I get frustrated? Shoot, yeah. It's like, sometimes you'd like to take some of the brother and just talk to him real nice, you know what I mean? The things, he said, the doctrine, the precepts, the sum of my ministry, which you have heard me teach in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to reliable and faithful men who will also be capable and qualified to do so. So in my years in Africa, I looked for men who could do that. And it's hard to find them. In a poverty-stricken country where it's pretty tough to make it ends meet, do you know what you're pretty tempted to do? Say whatever you got to say to get paid. You are acting faithfully in whatever you accomplish for the brethren, and especially when they are strangers, and they bear witness to your love before the assembly, and to you to do well to send them on their way in a manner worthy of God. For they went out for the sake of the name, accepting nothing from the Gentiles. Therefore we ought to support such men, that we may be fellow workers with the truth. That's what I'm asking you to be here today, is a fellow worker, a partner in this work. Let us not lose heart in doing good, for in due time we shall reap if we do not grow weary. So then, while we have opportunity, let us do good to all men, and especially to those who are of the household of the faith. I could go on for quite some time with scripture references like this, but I think you know them. We were created in Christ Jesus for what purpose? To do good works. Okay? Ghana. 70,000 square miles, the state of North Dakota. 90,000 miles, the country of Ghana. So they're just a little bit bigger than our state, and I don't know what the comparison is in Minnesota, but we are, as it was, 6,320 miles away. And some of you might immediately say, well, why don't we do something in this country? Well, go ahead. No, give me a plan. I don't particularly like beating myself up, you know what I mean? In this country, it's hard. In the homes that are available in this country, first of all, they're not true orphanages. An orphan is you're fatherless. They're dead. But nonetheless, we have homes, and it's good to take care of kids. Do you know how expensive it is in this country to do that? You know how many governmental hoops you got to jump through? You know what restrictions you are and aren't allowed to say? I considered that. In the nature of where it's located just 4 degrees north of the equator, which would suggest the temperature daily 70 to 90 degrees. 6 months of rain, 6 months of dry. I went there because they speak English. Well, yeah. The government documents and things are in English because it used to be a British colony. But there are 26 dialects in that country. So, the major one is called the Twi, and that is from the Ashanti tribe, which is the largest tribe in the country. However, I went there because I was in that old dog, not new trick thing. I'm not going to spend all the time learning language. I'm going to do what it is. And they all had what? English Bibles. You know how many people had tree Bibles? They couldn't read them. They carried them like it was like, they carried them everywhere. Couldn't read a word of it. That's problematic. So there's the country, specifically. We worked out of that city, Kumasi, as I said. 33 million people. By the way, we don't have hardly a million in North Dakota. You know, we have more cows than anybody. 64 is the life expectancy in terms of how old. The nature of the capital city of Accra, 68% use the internet. They got phones everywhere. Everybody's got a phone. Most of them, they can't turn on because they can't pay the bill. They have to pay as they go. They have to get a card and charge it all the time because the system won't allow them to be billed, and it's not, you can't trust them to pay and all that kind of stuff. 31% inflation rate. You want to do business? The banks will loan you money at 35%, if you like. Wow, you think, how are you going to do that? But see, the difference is that I'm not using their currency, I'm using dollars. So that means my dollar is going to go a whole lot longer and a whole lot farther than their local currency. So it's monetarily advantageous. That's the city I worked in. 86% have access to electricity most of the time. 16% practice safe sanitation. Ooh. There is an organization in the world that actually keeps track of corruption in governments. You can go online and look at their criteria for measuring that. Corrupt governments. The good old USA, as you can see there, ranks in that system, and 1 is like really good, and the bigger the number, really bad. So we're ranked in the world right there at that spot. Okay? Yes, we are corrupt. Just check what's going on in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Check what goes on in Miami, one of the biggest medical fraud cases in the history of the United States. $900 billion were swindled over a long period of time. And the guy that was heading it up got convicted. Then he got paroled by Mr. Trump. We got corruption everywhere. It's nothing new. But we're at the top end of the deal because Ghana itself is twice as bad. Corruption is a part of their middle name. Bribery, changing of governments. When they have two-party system, they claim they're in democracy. When one party gets in new, he fires everybody. I'm not making this up. He fires everybody and then starts replacing those people with members that got him what? Elected. It's an old, America used to do that a long time ago. So what does that do for government productivity? How long does it take to get somebody into office that knows whether, if they're a transportation secretary or whatever? It's a mess. Bribery is rampant. It's a problem. Number 1, Denmark. I think it's a little colder there. They don't come out much. Check this one out. Mexico. That's really bad. My point is this. While there are advantages working overseas, there are disadvantages. In our operation, we have to deal with government. And you would think that the government would be liking us because we're dealing with their kids and we're trying to help their children, of which they can't do. There's street kids all over the place. They can't take them in. We take them in, and then you know what the trigger point was for us when they found out that I was an American. And Americans have money. Suddenly I had a whole bunch of people wanting a job. And for the first number of years, all I was doing was preaching. And we wanted to step out and do a little bit more here. And now, same all over the world. That's the country. It's in the second city. It's a main thoroughfare. As we drive into the city, you can see the trash. You might not be able to see this is a waterway. It's full of plastic bottles and trash. And it only disappears when the rainy season comes. And it washes it somewhere. So you can see the landscape as it was and as it is. Now this is the part where I'm not trying to drown something into your head, but just because we live in America doesn't mean it always works. There we go. So you drive around town, second largest city, this is what you're going to see. I used to come back from my early missionary journeys, and people, were energetic to see what was going on. I figured out something really early. I can show you all these pictures. What I'm not going to show you are hundreds of baptisms. Did we immerse people? Yes, we did. But that's not the measure of success here. But one of the things you can't do is you can't smell it. I'm waiting for a PowerPoint with scratch and sniff. You just, because it's different. It really sets the tone. Those are Brahma. That's the only cattle they have in the country is Brahmas. And that is primarily because they can handle the heat. But the grass is no good for them because it doesn't have any protein in it. It's full of water. So they don't get very meaty. Mostly they use them for milk. That's not unusual for a woman to have to carry her stuff from the marketplace. And there's the cows going to market in the back of a makeshift rig on a little tractor thing that they have to repair several times during the course of the day. That's trash. That's the apartment we rented. Yeah, second day, had a little nice, it was all nice looking and everything like that. And then we went in there and I see. They just crawl right up from the sewer tanks. My wife from the bottom there, she's washing clothes by hand, drying them on the railing. You get the picture, right? This is a third world country. Although they say now it's an advancing country. But you go there and make your own decision. There's a couple of little hot spots. We can go, we got a slushie. When we get ready to go to the village, this was halfway on the way, we'd always get a slushie saying it's going to be a long day, so we would get something cool. There's a couple of those places. Because they're all rich Ghanaians. They are. But the percentage is pretty small. These are kebabs, and you say, oh yeah, well they're goat. And you're going to have to work at it. Because they're a little tough. But they're really spicy. And you throw that spice with the slushy, you're good for a couple hours. Don't worry. I'm telling you. The other thing is that the country tends to be religious. But Pentecostalism is the number one religion in the country. And because they're so susceptible to it, because they come from a history of animism. They believe their ancestors are in the trees. Right? They come and visit them. They have juju men and all kinds of stuff. And so when the Pentecostals came, Benny Hinn and those doing their big crusades and all that stuff, it just, they took on and grabbed. These are billboards. And there are more billboards religiously advertising all kinds of 21 days of prayer and fasting than you would ever see if you took a drive across your fair state. In one stretch of the highway, you would see more religious billboards there than you would here. Oh yeah. All about love. Now I'm going to tell you something, you aren't going to believe me. But I'm going to try. One evangelist, so-called evangelist of the Pentecostal movement, had a big meeting in the capital city. And this is standard, okay? He got a door frame. Like you see like in a play or something like that, just the door frame. And he preached and he preached and he preached, and he said, God is now going to bless you. I'm going to open this door, and this is the door to good fortune. And they started coming down. But before you could walk through the door, there was a guy with one of them little bags. And you didn't get to walk through the door until you put something in the bag. I don't know what the rate of return was supposed to be. But those guys, they're so desperate for a solution. Why did the poor come see Jesus? Because they're poor. And every day over there, they do that all the time. They put their money, they do this, they do that, and then the Lord's going to bless me. One guy on Christmas, on New Year's Eve, promised his audience that if you made a big contribution, God would make sure that you got a passport to come to the U.S. You think they want to come to the U.S.? Oh yeah, real bad. All of this, that's what they do. That's the funeral, that's the cemetery. Funerals are a big deal over there. Very costly too, but they take days to do it. A long time. Productivity is cut. They still have that, they have a two-party system, as I mentioned, but the other thing that's hard for us to work through, it's something we don't have in this country, is they still have the king system. Every one of these tribes have kings. They call them the Utumfo. And the Utumfo is the king of whatever tribe is. And every little town has a chief that's related to, they have to go up the chain of command. And I have to deal with them. I have to go visit the chief to let him know I'm in town and let him know what I'm going to do. And then he has to give his approval to whether or not we want to do it. This is separate from the government. And you know what the chief wants when I come? You know, it's a little grease. Now, it used to be, what they would like to do is they wanted some abitishi. That's booze. I don't give booze. So the one guy in one village, I brought him a case of Coke. He wasn't impressed. But that's what I'm bringing. We got stopped on the street, my wife and I. We were headed somewhere in the city, and it was one block city, and I just turned and got down it, and all of a sudden the policeman steps out in the middle of the road and stops me. He comes around the window, and he gets in the car, and he says, "We're going to the police station." I said, "What for?" He says, "You were going down a one-way." I came to find out there is only one street in the city that's one-way, and it's only one block long. It's in the center of the city, and every day policemen are assigned to that city, waiting for some poor fool to come down the wrong way, because you know what he really wants? Lunch. You know, my wife's, she's a little afraid, I'm a little afraid. We're going to the police station for what? You went down the wrong. Really? But then he says, "If you buy me lunch, all's good." I bought him lunch. Doggone right I did. Yeah. But imagine working in an environment like that. But I'm telling you, it's still better than here. We had a number of situations that happened like that. All kinds of religious ideas and things. These are the men that I have worked with for years. This gentleman here is my right-hand man for nearly 30 years. His name is Joshua Santi. This is an older man. He's 70-some. He lives in the north. He's kind of the guy, if I'm having problems with these young fellas, I go talk to him and then he calls them. Because they have a culture that's different. And the older guys get respect. And so he does all the talking for me. This is the one in the red shirt. Here is the youngest of the group. He works in a town and in 2 villages he preaches at. And this is Willie. He runs a school of 163 kids in a village. He's well respected. We've worked over the years to get that into an institution that's respected in the region. And this is another gentleman that's in a congregation outside of Kumasi that I preached in the early years. And these guys I trust. These guys I came to know, and I don't trust them. Are you surprised? Just because you're a preacher, should you trust them? And are there bad preachers? Well, just talk to the sons of Eli. Right? That wasn't good, right? Yeah. This is a young couple, my wife, a young couple of kids. They're Willie's children. And they help with the school and various projects. So we try to utilize, but not everybody's trustworthy. I brought them in, last time we were there for 3 months, I brought them in, we had specific Bible studies to cover material, and they said yes, 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 and yes, 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 and then after I left, it was no, 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 no. So you're always looking for the real deal, and it's tough. Fortunately, we stayed the course, and we figured it out, who we could trust. I got invitations to teach at schools, large congregations, as I mentioned, Bible colleges. I'm familiar with how things work in this country. Our exposure at some point brought us to the opportunity to help in, as I said, a school in a village that gets a lot of its income from date palms. When the palm nuts come in, they gather them. These people are paid to extract them from the bundles, and then they're taken off and sold as palm oil, and in some cases palm wine. They don't get much, and they get work. It's very seasonal. These are the teachers at the school that Willie operates, that when I'm there, we talk about our goals and what we intend to do and how we intend to instruct the kids. We have Bible class every day in the school. We have textbooks, if you will, that reiterate the moral character. And over the years, people have helped build this and put this together. We've had a couple of individual donors that have helped us to construct these things. And we told the teachers, we want you for a long term. We don't want you to leave us. So we're trying our best to pay them such that they could stay. But really couldn't pay them that because the kids that pay the tuition, it's in a village, and we couldn't pay them enough to get qualified people. So, having done all that and working with the children and the teachers, you see that? They have a book called Religious and Moral Education. You seen any of those in your local schools? I think it's worth working in a place like that where you can. The government's in my way, but guess what? They try to put on a facade and say this is what we want, so we take advantage of it. We visited an orphanage. It was run by a German NGO. We wanted to see how they do it, see what was going on. So we did our research and we talked to some of the kids and to some of the staff about the nature of it. It's an NGO, which means it's operated out of Europe. It's not helped by the government. And the funding is, directly tied to their ability to take the children. So then we ran into a couple of guys that had an orphanage, and so we investigated that, and this was their orphanage, and it was really bad. So then we said, we'd like to take it over. And we got, yeah, sure, great. Because what they thought is that we were going to come in and pay them real good money, and then they were going to have a good, secure job for the rest of their life running this orphanage that they had absolutely run in the ground. And we figured that that's not what's going to be the case. So we ended up buying the land, getting the funding to redo it. By the way, isn't that a lovely way to mix cement? That's the way they do it over there. They put it on the floor, they turn it, and then they use it as they go. They got one guy up on the wall, and he's getting ready to plaster those walls to make them smooth, because they do everything in concrete block, because that's the only thing that'll last over there. Termites and bugs and stuff like that eats the wood. So we turned it into rooms where we got our first girls, and we continued to add. We have a license to run 23 kids. We currently have 13, and we're going to keep 13. Because our motto is quality, not quantity. We're going to give them what we think is the best of what we can provide so they have the best opportunity. Now, I'm not naive. I don't know how many of them are going to be faithful. I don't know. But we're going to give them an opportunity to live a life that demonstrates the love of God to them and see what they decide to do with it. We got the facility, you can see there. We fixed it all up. We got our own well or water. We pay for the kids to go to school. We have uniform. We have everything they need. It's an amazing thing to look in the lives, and we've been at it now for just over 2 years. We're not looking to add 500 kids. We're not looking to add even 20. We've sent our first kid to boarding school. In Africa, when you go into secondary education, you go to boarding school. You don't walk to school. You go 3 months at a time, and then you're off for a month. And the reason you're off for a month is you got to go home and help the family. So as it was, we have one child that's getting ready to complete her first year of secondary education. We hope to teach her, get her into a vocational school. Everybody wants to go to university over there because I think education, right, is the answer. Get a good job. Nonsense. For every 4 people that graduate out of the university in Ghana, there's only one job. That's our crew. The other thing it took us a very long time to get was house parents that we could trust. I've fired 2 sets of house parents already because I found out they wanted jobs. They didn't love kids. Now Joshua, my right-hand man, he does all the day-to-day activities, but in terms of monitoring, I talk to him at least 3 times a week. The internet does have value. And the house parents manage the kids. The mom cooks. We have a street person. Joshua got a street person. She's from the north. She was selling water in the streets on her head, barely making enough money to even eat, and she slept in a kiosk, a little shack. And Joshua made contact with her and said, if you'd like to, you could come, you could help cook, and we'll give you a real place to stay, and you can eat. And she said, great, I'd love to do that. And she's been with us. We do pay her a little now because she's remained faithful. But to find those people is so hard. Because what people say and what people do are oftentimes 2 different things. So my wife and I, when we were there last time, lived with the orphanage. We went out there. I have to confess, we did with one adaptation. We put an air conditioner in the room. Because I was about ready to mount. But I tell you what, if you ever, you want to go on a weight reduction program, I got the place. Rice and hot weather will, you'll get rid of them pounds in no time. God being rich in mercy because of his great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our transgressions, he made us alive. Together with Christ, by the grace you have been saved, and raised us up with him and seated us with him in the heavenly places in Christ Jesus, in order that in the age to come he might show the surpassing riches of his grace and his kindness towards us in Christ Jesus. For by grace you have been saved through faith. And that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not as a result of works that no one should boast, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. Like taking care of widows and orphans in their time of tribulation. That's what we do. That's why we go. Specifically, we have, in our long-term plan, we are trying to set up a legacy fund. I'm getting older. I don't know how many years I got left. I'm in great health. I don't take any meds. My wife feeds me well. So we're still running. But there'll come a day when I can't go. And I've seen too many works where people haven't gone. In the recent years, the missionaries used to go and they would come back and they would give reports and they would go back and they would come and they would stay there their entire lifetime. But you know what happened to many of those places is nobody replaced them. Nobody else wanted to go. So I'm concerned that nobody else will take. My kids have gone. My daughter has gone a couple of times. My kids are involved. They all were there. And I don't know, they may take it up, I don't know, but we're trying to put together a fund so that when I'm gone, we're gone, that it still can be managed in country. Because they can do a better job of it than I can, as long as I've got trustworthy people. So that's our long-term goal. We have a brokerage fund. If you've got stocks and bonds that you like to trade in, you get a tax discount for that. You don't get caught in capital gains tax. It's a great little deal. But you can transfer those. We could have stocks in the legacy fund that we could use in a future date. And if it's like the new company, like some new Microsoft deal, and in 10 years it's like, woo, that would be great, wouldn't it? Short term. We're trying to be as self-sufficient as we can. We are starting a project to where we're going to farm and raise some of our own staples. Corn, tomatoes, peppers, and we're going to get chickens to be as self-sufficient as we can. Our house parents are familiar with both of those fields. They come from the north. And of course we want to have something for the kids to do other than play soccer. And so we've been mulling this over. So you can think of a request for the legacy fund. You can think of the request for the chickens. We have a sister in Minot. She's a Ghanaian. Her father's in the chicken business. I've met him. He's been to the house. He's even been to the States. And he's been out to our house recently. And he said, tell me when you're ready and I'll help you. So God is putting the people in line. Or on the personal level, it costs us $100 a month to meet the needs for every child we have. And that's provided nothing bad happens, like get stung by a scorpion or a centipede or something, and you have some extra stuff. Or the government decides to raise the rates. When we left last time, the U.S. dollar was devaluated by 30%. Overnight. So our $100, whatever we were spending $100 on now, takes $130. Now it's still better than here, but boy. And you know what's happening to the CD now? Slowly but surely it's losing ground, because every time they do that it's artificial. From the World Bank and a whole bunch of stuff. But my point is this. $100 would suffice to take care of a child each month. I can tell you how to do all that stuff, whichever you like to do. You may be contributing somewhere. You may be doing 1,000 good deeds. And I say, glory to God. But if this is appealing to you, then I'd like to help you. I'd like to be able to come back here every year and just give you a little update about the good things that God is doing over there in a very hard place. And I said, I'm not naive. I don't know what those kids are going to do. Do you know what your kids are going to do when they turn 18? Unfortunately, we know too well, don't we? Where are they? Many of them have left the body. All kinds of reasons, but that's a fact. But I'm not in control of that. What I'm in control of is giving them access to the love of God through our behavior and through the preached word. And that's what we do. And that's why we go.
957. Shut your mic off. I'll even take it from you.